Welcome back to part 2 of this conversation.
We're having some conversation before the podcast, and Hannah, you had said some things that really, I think, struck a chord with all of us. So I was hoping that you would mind sharing.
I remember everything correctly.
Capacity.
Yes.
We were
Capacity.
talking about
Yes.
vocabulary.
It's having the vocabulary to express to your spouse what it is that you are feeling. And sometimes you don't know what that is. And I was saying that, like, for the three of you, Jackie, Eric, and Anthony, because you guys are asking questions for understanding, that a lot of times we don't have that vocabulary to help you understand. And it is in those moments where it's just like, I really don't need for you to understand in order for you to support. You know, the support is just being there and becoming whatever I may need you to be in that moment, and vice versa. And the other thing that I was thinking about is the fact that we talk about how we don't have the capacity for things, but God does, you know, and a lot of the times it's for us to remember that we don't have to have the capacity if we just fully rely on Him. And it's something that you had said, Brittany, earlier on when you were sharing your story in regards to, like, not being, you know, having to be strong and going through it. And what I was thinking about is that, especially in the Christian world, as believers, we're told to count it all joy, right? And so it's like, oh, well, I have to be strong because I'm a believer. And as a believer, I know that whatever loss, whether it was a loved one or a job or whatever, it's all going to work out for my good, right? But the truth of the matter is that even though it works together for my good, it still doesn't feel good. It still does not look good.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't want to go through it. And I can express that to God, because that's one of the things I feel a lot of times that we as Christians, we make each other feel bad about feeling. Like, we don't give each other permission to feel. Like, if we feel anything other than happiness, joy, love, contentment, all that stuff, you're wrong. Like, your faith is wavering. Like, you need to go to the altar. You need to repent. And it's just like, hold up, wait a minute.
It's like it's a sin to feel.
Yes. It's
Oh, see, that's
Thank you.
support.
She's gonna be mad.
But yeah, it's almost like we're saying it's a sin to feel. But didn't Jesus feel despair when he was in the Garden of Gethsemane? Like, he was sweating blood, because even though he knew what his assignment was before he even came into the earth, in that moment, he still asked God, is there another way?
Yeah.
But nevertheless, and I think even for us, we go through this loss, we go through this grief, and it's just like, God, this is despair. I don't like how this feels. I'm angry. You are allowing me to go through this, and I understand that as your creation, I don't have a right to say to you, why am I going through this? Because however you choose to use me, Lord, is how you gonna use me. At the same time, I can say, God, I don't like it. I don't like it, but nevertheless, I'm gonna go through it because I know in the long run, it's gonna work out for my good. I don't understand that good right now, and you're okay with me telling you that. You're okay with me being real and raw about my feelings. At the same time, because you are sovereign God, and because I do choose to follow you and to submit to your will, I'm gonna go through this. You know, and that's what I hear, and I know it's hard for other Christians to hear it. But if we even look at the story of Job, Job didn't do anything. There was a whole conversation going on in heaven that he knew nothing about. And he had some trifling friends that came over that was supposed to support him, but made him feel even worse than what he was already going through. But here it is, Job went through all of that. And he was real with God. He told God how he felt. He even questioned, I've been faithful. Why am I going? I didn't do anything wrong. He was real. But we got to be careful in those feelings, because when God answered him, he said, were you there when I created the earth? Were you there? Like, do you tell the sea where to stop? Do you tell? We don't.
Yeah.
And so it's like we go through these things and it's okay. And we go through it together if we allow ourselves to, you know, because like I said, we're the strong friends, right? And we don't really know how to fully allow other people to be there for us. But God is like, I didn't create you to be by yourself. I know the plans that I have for you.
Yeah.
And so a part of those plans is for you to have community, for you to open up, for you to be humble, open, and transparent and talk and share these stories with one another, because none of you are going through this alone.
Yeah.
It may look different for each of us, but we all went through the same thing of grief.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm glad you said what you said, because a lot of times in the faith-based community, we don't throw the whole book at it. We just throw the pieces. And I'm talking about from those that come to support, right? And it's not that they have bad intentions. We count it all joy. But the Bible also says, but in my weakness, in your weakness, he's made strong, right? And I think sometimes we, my pastor said it like this very clearly: you can't let anyone tell you how to mourn.
There you go.
He said that to me. I never let it go. And I have never had a season of loss like that. But that, it hit me so hard because I was watching someone else go through grief. And one of the things is nobody can dictate the time. I think that's one of the things that so often wants to get thrown into the mix where, okay, it's been 6 months now. Okay, what you should be all right now. You should be all right. You can't let anybody dictate or tell you how to mourn or how long it should take you to mourn. And as a spouse, I have to remember that in her loss in this season, this might, as Anthony has shared with us, as some other friends, like this is an ongoing, everyday. Anthony said it a few minutes ago. He said, like, I think about this stuff all the time.
Awesome.
This is not something that just goes away. So you have to understand that whatever that process and whatever that time that is needed, it is what it is. The other thing I wanted to share is because we did get singled out. Like, we're the questionnaires. We question and we question and we question because we want to gain understanding. And the thing that Hannah talked about was that really kind of tapped me on my own shoulder was that we as the spouse we have to get to a place where we understand that the value in the support during grief is a lot of times greater than the solution that you're trying to find and trying to bring and trying to help. Because I love her so much, I just want to fix it. Let me fix it. Let me fix it. And I can remember her in a particular conversation where I was like, what can I do? What can I do? I just want to fix it. And she said, you can't bring her back. There is no fix that you can bring to me right now. And we have to sometimes just say, you know what? Well, let me just love on you. Let me just hug you. Let me just be quiet. Let me just sit here with you, because it's not always about the solution or what we can do to make that our partner feel better. It's really a lot of times what is the support. And I think we talked about this too. And then I'm gonna let Jackie have it because I think you started to talk about it. Support is different for every situation and every person. Like what Brittany needs in this season right now is different than what Jackie needed and what Anthony needed. And so I think we have to really be mindful of what the need is.
I do. I'm
go
sorry.
ahead,
I wanna pick up something. We said this a moment ago when you talked about where you were after the loss and having a child and being in that depressed. I don't want to dismiss that or go past. I want us to really talk about that because that's something that I dealt with even prior to in her sickness. I dealt with depression, and I mean I'm talking some dark moments of depression, and then like losing her was like, and then it's a whole nother dynamic. I don't know if we're going to talk about it in this episode, but even the dynamic of my relationship with my father shifted. That's another grief, another loss that I had to deal with and am still dealing with. And those depressive moments came up again. So at the end of the day, like, yes, as Christians, go see a therapist. I'm looking at
That
go
that
see
part.
a therapist because at the end of the day, I believe in our Christian community, we say, oh girl, just pray about it. Yes, I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to seek the Lord's face, but I'm also going to seek, because at the end of the day, that's a profession that was created for us to be able to go and talk to them.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, still, I'm finna put it on a t-shirt. I got Jesus and a therapist.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm gonna seek him, but I'm gonna meet with my therapist twice a month.
Yeah.
Religiously. So it's something that we should not downplay in individually and even as a couple. Talk to someone.
Yeah.
Don't go through life in silence and not being able to speak to someone to kind of help you navigate on where you are.
Yeah. It's a trap.
I felt so weird until I spoke to somebody about it, because how complicated grief is, right? I found comfort and I felt terrible, and I feel bad even saying it, but although I know that people relate, I found comfort when I knew somebody that lost somebody. You know, somebody else lost somebody. And it's like, oh, I'm not the only person that's losing people. You know what I mean? And then when I lost my father, I went to the person that I knew who lost somebody. And they were more, it was like, the conversation was, you like get this badge of honor. You in this club now. You know what I mean? That when people haven't lost like a parent or whatever, or somebody close like that. I'll say a parent. I won't say child or some, because it's all
that's a
different.
whole nother-
But like when you lose it, because people like, why you ain't talk to why you ain't talk to your mom? Like you know if it's part of me that's like, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like it is so final that you really, and it's hard for people won't understand it until it happens, because there's nothing you will ever experience in life that is so final. That is it. This book is closed. You can't write nothing else in it. That chapter is done. It's time to go to the next one. But you can still, and I found my comfort in, all right, I had my mom's journal. I had different things. I was blessed to be in a situation with my mother where there was nothing left unsaid. All of the things that needed to be said were said. All of the moments that we needed to have were intentional. And that brought me some solace, in the midst of it. Although still, I know some people, everybody's different. I've only been to my mother's gravesite once. And that was maybe 2 years ago when I went. I don't think I've been to my dad. I've been to my dad's. Or was that the same time? It was the same time.
While I'm here,
Went to both of them. Well, daddy's on his there.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go.
That's
I was
real.
like, I don't really think they done. I don't want to think that they done. So I don't.
Yeah.
It's not
that's
my
okay.
thing personally.
That's okay.
But it just it brought me that much solace in that, and just knowing, and then my family, just, all right, I'm gonna be the dad that my daddy was to me. I'm going to, be the nurturer that my mom was to me. And you have the tough parts. You all mentioned it a little bit about, the grandkids, and that's the part, every celebration, it's just a little like, dang, I wish they was, and then I get it. People say, oh, they see. I'm like, I know. I want them to see right here.
Right, I want them to
and I want to ask them about it. You know what I mean?
Right.
But as time goes, you begin to, you feel it in the wind, and a little butterfly, or a reminder, or a song, or a TV show, or whatever it is. Those reminders and those things, and I'm so grateful that because with me it hits with the kids. They're getting older. They were younger, and you'll have the moments, because they were so young, where they might forget. They know Nana, they know Papa, but they might, Nana, she was like this, right? Nah. She, Nana was this. You know what I mean? So you keep a reminder. I mean, my daughter, she has mom's picture in the room, and she always, any type of art project or something, she's always drawing her doing something about them, and that brings me joy, you know. But you know, there are the times, you know, little moments where, but I've gotten better with just acknowledging it, seeing it, and I'll talk to Hannah about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And and it's good to express, good to talk for therapy and different things. But I've found I started to walk in it. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for the surrounding and the people and just the situation that I'm in. And I know that that's unfortunately not everybody's story, you know.
Yeah.
But I am grateful for that.
I would add that for our story, because again, grief is different for everybody. But one of the things that Anthony and I have talked about and how he shared it, and because people are saying that, oh, it'll get better in time, right? And that just sounds it sounds wrong. But what Anthony and I have realized is that it's not that it gets better with time. You just adjust as time goes on how to live with them not here. And that's what can get a little easier for you. It's just adjusting to that. You know, like you said, the new normal, right? What does that new normal look like? Well, every day is different, right? You know, today this is how it looks, tomorrow is another. So every day we just adjust to what that new normal is. And it's something that Skyland said because, you know, like Anthony said, Skyland, our daughter, for those who don't know. But it's something that she says that I also hold dear to my heart as well. It's just that they're always in our hearts. And so that's the one thing that's different. Because like even when you said like every time that you would walk out the door, you know, she immediately got sad, right? But now a way to look at it is that she's always with you, right there in your heart. That's one thing. I mean, and she was always in your heart when she was here too, but now like for real, everywhere you go, she's right there with you. And so, you know, when Skyland said that, that's just a little bit of solitude that no matter where we are, now it's more easier accessible to them because they're right there. And so that helps with the adjustment from day to day, you know. And so, but I'm grateful for this conversation though.
Can we normalize seeking therapy? Number one, also seeking a support group, and be comfortable as the spouse to be okay not having an answer for your spouse.
That's good.
Because sometimes we think we need to know and have everything for them at that moment. And you won't. It's something new and probably going to be reoccurring. You know what I mean? But just to understand, to be there, like we said before, a support for your spouse at the time, whatever they need, you ask for it. So just normalizing that, because that's what's in the body of Christ. What I'm seeing, this is not talked about a lot. Support groups, we think support group is having the catfish fried, come together, fellowship, and we just having a, you know, good old time talking about the Bible and whatnot, and we don't talk about this part that people need to share exactly what they feel without being judged. And we need that in this moment, with no judgment, free, let them express exactly how they feel from the pit of, because by the word of our testimony, that's a testimony that's coming out. Ain't gonna be keep on recurring until God continue walking us through this process. But I just wanted to say that let's just normalize support groups, also therapy, and being comfortable as the spouse that's supporting the loved one, your partner, of not having all the answers. You're not gonna have the answers.
And not only not have the answers, but also have the grace.
The grace.
Because we talk about like the new normal and everything, but there's a new normal within your marriage. There's an adjustment period within your marriage, because things that, especially when it's fresh, right? There are things that you are now getting used to, because it's like, as a spouse, you still have your needs, right? And so a part of you is like, well, I don't want to ask for my needs because I feel bad about asking you for it, but at the same time, it's like, but I need to express it. So it is, again, learning that vocabulary, having those conversations, creating a safe space within your marriage to say, like you said, you're very comfortable with Eric, just to express to him how you're feeling. Like, seriously, creating those safe spaces to be vulnerable with your spouse and say what you're needing, and to have that grace of knowing that it's a new adjustment right here, as it is for your family.
Because if you don't, let me just say this, right? As pastors now, we see things that everybody's not privy to. But if you don't do that, it can begin to deteriorate your marriage.
Talk about it.
And begin to, that loss will become a cancer that will begin to eat at the very foundations. It's kind of going back to what Hannah said, is if you don't say what you need, do you know that if you sit around for a year or so and don't express your needs, and you're not communicating that, that the enemy, the devil, will come in. He will put a wedge in there. And while you're thinking everything is good and everything is going great, one partner is saying, oh, everything is fine. The other one is saying, I hate this. I don't want to be here. This loss and all the things that I had to take care of the kids. I had to do this. I had to stand alone in this area. And just because small needs weren't met, small needs, it'll begin to cause resentment.
That's the word.
It'll begin to cause bitterness, all because we allowed. And again, like you said, George, we don't talk about these things in our community, in our culture. A lot of times in our churches, we don't talk about these things, and they become the formula for how marriages break down. And in a day and time where marriages aren't always successful, right? We already have headwinds that we deal with in marriages already. Loss of a loved one should not be allowed to be one of those things that cause, because you both love that person. You both were in a place where you're grieving, but you don't want that to become the foundation or the reason why your marriage begins to subtly, because you don't talk about it. You're not going to talk about this grief, not going to talk about this, and it'll begin to eat away at you. So.
I felt this in my spirit. Somebody who watching now said, I don't know if it was you. You said, they said go to therapy, normalize therapy, go to support. But I tried that and it didn't work. Try again.
Try
There
again.
you go.
And be honest.
Yes.
Be vulnerable, because you can't get to the root of any situation if you're not honest and open. Like we say, hot. Honest, open, and transparent. That's the only way that the therapist can get to what they need to get to, because then they can say, okay, so you should try this. Right? So yes, I'm glad you said that.
That's it, because real talk, real story. I remember the day before, it was a year after my daddy died. I was going back to his tombstone had just come. So we were going back and we were gonna, get flowers and do the whole thing. It was the day before. That just so happened to be the day that I started. I was like, I'm gonna get therapy. So I went through the assessment with the person, and I'm the strong one. So I'm not used to and accustomed to talking about my feelings. This is new for me. So you're the professional. You got to pull it out of me. I'm assuming that's how this works. Okay? So she's going through the assessment, and she told me, she said, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with you. You're probably just going through postpartum because you had a baby. You should go to the doctor. I said, okay. I hung up the phone, and I was like, nobody can help me. Nobody can help me. And then probably for 6 months, I was like, forget that, because that's not going to work. So I'm talking to you because I was you. I was like, this didn't work. Right? And so maybe that wasn't the right therapist for you. Just like when you before you got married, you dated, you have to find the right therapist. So I am imploring you to try again. And I also want to talk about, or real talk, this is no blame, shame, or attack on my people. I love my people. I love my church. I love my culture. I love it all. And going through this process, I have literally seen a difference between how, I would just say, I hate to say the Black church and not Black, like I don't, but this safe space, Love and Legacy, safe space. The non-Black church had a lot more resources, a lot more things for us to plug into. And we're actually going to share some of those resources that were already ready to go. They had weekly things that we could plug into. They had videos ready to go. They had, and it was just welcoming. Like you could go into those circles and feel like you weren't going to be judged. Whereas there was a separate experience within the Black church that I observed. And it was like, the support wasn't there. There was no systems around grief that even existed really for us to plug into in the particular Black churches that we had experience with. But then there was okay, this is going to be like a 30-day thing or a 90-day thing, then you need to move on. This is not all Black churches. Please hear my heart. But I sat back and I saw these two distinct differences in the way our cultures approach grief, even in the church, the place where this is supposed to be a hospital. And if just say it, a lot of times we feel more comfortable going to places where people look like us. If I can't go to a place where people look like me and talk about this, like, it just feels like we're missing something. It feels like we're missing something. And so I just implore you, try again, and don't be afraid to go to places that don't look like, people that don't look like you in situations that you may not have tried before.
Can I say something real practical? This is not as deep, but very practical that people can put in place. Get life insurance.
Yeah.
Especially our culture, because it's not talked about a lot. And a lot of people, we've probably heard, well, why I want to be worth more dead than alive. You know what I mean? Like I've heard that from some older generations above me, and it's not necessarily their fault that it hasn't been really talked about or passed down to us. So yeah, that was the first thing after my father passed, that's where we went to go do. We went to go get life insurance, and it doesn't solve anything. It doesn't make anything better, but it does take that ease off of that stressful part, because that funeral planning, that kind of thing, that is it could be it weighs, especially like, look, I done told her, look, just burn me up. Don't worry about all that other stuff, because I gotta pay for the plot, gotta pay for the thing, that the thing go in, like what?
It's a lot.
And then what? Ain't no spaces. What y'all doing? Well, all this, why the tombstone take 8 months to get here?
Look,
I don't pay all this money. This don't make no sense. This crazy.
That's a real conversation.
Don't get me started.
Man, listen.
They make all this technology. I'm saying somebody ripping somebody off. Something ain't right.
It's just easier when it's not a GoFundMe.
Yes.
There you go.
That's it. It's easier on you to grieve and to be in the moment. Because I think the other part too is you have so much going on that week or two of, when it's final, and then you got to get all of this stuff that you might miss the moment. And I think when it comes to grieving, a lot of people miss the grieving moment of that moment, right?
Yeah.
The celebration. You don't celebrate. Why? You've been up all night.
Yeah,
you didn't
gotta
go
do all
to
the
sleep.
things.
You didn't, And for me as the spouse, it wasn't even me. Like that was doing all the running around. I will say this though, because I wanted to piggyback one more time on this. What camera we on? Which one? On normalizing therapy, and not just for the person that the immediate loss is, but for the spouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you can't understand some of the things that they may bring to you out of their therapy if you're not in it to some degree yourself. And if we're being honest, when you really, truly love your spouse, you want to do everything together. Now, I know there's moments and times where, okay, you need to be in that by yourself, but there still should be a normalization of saying, well, when do we go? Like, so we can be better? Because if we're not good, then everything else collapses.
Yeah.
And so I think, normalizing, thank you, George, for saying that, because that is something we always look at the spiritual side,
Yeah.
pray about it, believe God's word.
Yeah.
Joy comes in the morning.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah.
But go to the therapist
Yeah.
and have that conversation.
And I want to say the practical piece, right? What you said about life insurance. As Christians, we're living our life by the word, but we can't pick out pieces of the word, right? So you shall leave an inheritance. So life insurance is set. It's an inheritance for your children's children. Like, I want to be able to have something set aside.
Yep.
So as Christians, we can't pick apart. Let's do the whole Bible.
Yeah.
Yes, legacy. That's leaving something. So I know, because I remember sitting at that table planning my mom's funeral, and then having the life insurance policy and all that stuff in place, having to pick up the phone and call them and say, I have to file a claim.
Yeah. Ooh, that
Because
part.
of this. That was hard.
That part.
That was
It's
hard.
like, what am I saying?
Yeah, what
here?
am I saying here? And it's like being able to say, I have this piece of paper here that was something that I know that my mom is going to be taken care of. I don't have to do a GoFundMe account or to sell fish dinners or chicken dinners. Now, I would have had to do what I had to do if it wasn't in place, but I'm just thankful that I didn't have to. So
It's already hard enough.
it's already hard enough. That process is hard. And then I had to go to the actual place where my mom's body was. So I'm sitting there knowing that she's behind this door trying to do that. So my mind, so think about your mind trying to say, how am I going to come up with this almost $10,000? And then maybe she got a $2,000 life insurance policy. No, everything was taken care of, because that's what me and Eric did right after we got life insurance policies. We got a lot of kids.
Yeah.
So we had to make sure the life insurance policy was set, because I want to make sure that when our children, God forbid, now we go together, we go separately. Either way, we know that you're going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
Trust me. Don't buy that child a pair of Jordans one Christmas. You probably would have taken care of the don't do that.
But to that point, it's going to be more expensive for us not to be informed and get educated than it will be for us to invest our pieces and our paychecks to do it. And I think there's this fear. There's probably different elements, but it's not just that people don't want to go spend the money. It's people just like, well, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know where to go get the information. I'm scared to talk about death. And we have to challenge all of those thoughts so that we can not pay the full price at the end of the day, and then do what's right now.
But you know what I heard when you said that? Because we talk about normalizing therapy, we need to normalize curiosity.
Yeah.
It's almost as if we're afraid to ask questions.
Yeah,
We're
exactly.
afraid to say that we don't know something. And you don't know what you don't know.
Well, here's the thing. Because once you know,
Yeah.
it's on you. And I think the responsibility of knowledge is, now that I know, I'm going to look crazy if I don't do it. And in our culture, there are some fears that have been built up for many years for a number of different reasons. And, we know how we got here, but nevertheless, we cannot, just even like this conversation, you can't take this conversation, listen to it in its entirety, and not be different or do different or not be prepared or understand. And I say this all the time, if it is not a need, it's a seed. So if it's not something that you struggle in, but if you know another couple, if you know another family member, you have to share the knowledge and share what we're sharing, because I believe that all of us have gone through the experiences of grief so that we could be better ourselves, but so that we can also leave a legacy of knowledge and understanding of how to walk through these moments and be better, and just not find ourselves doing the same thing that our ancestors and family over the years have done when it comes to grief and not dealing with it.
And it's crazy just thinking about it's for the marriage. And I'm thinking back when I had to plan my funeral for my brother. The grief process with my mom was totally different.
Yeah.
Because now you got a mom that's mourning a loss of a son and a child. And that was totally different when I seen that. That was the last death of the whole cycle. And just seeing that with my mom's made me even be more aware of how to cherish the moment with my mom, number one. But also, how do I focus with my spouse too. You know what I mean, my wife, and just getting that understanding of yeah, I lost my train of thought.
It's all right, baby. Because it's a lot to think about, like you supporting your mom and being there for
And being there
your
for
family,
you.
your wife.
And, yeah, and for both of y'all, and just seeing that dynamic of I had to be strong for my mom because my mom couldn't do nothing. My older sister, she been bedridden for a while.
Yeah.
She couldn't even go to the
Years.
funeral. You know, and even me and my brother, oh, I love my brother-in-law. My brother-in-law, he just dropped everything and said, we both looked at each other like, all right, let's go find out where he stayed at. Let's go do this. And we just got into it. And in those moments, we didn't even grieve.
Yeah.
Until it was like the day of when we had the funeral. And then that when both of us just in the limo going to the funeral, just everybody just broke down. And even those moments, it taught me a lot, just being behind both sides of it and just getting a better understanding, created muscle memory and created like trials and tribulation. That's what he was speaking to me the whole time. That trials and tribulation gonna always come. It's how we go through it with him. God, I'm finna hold your pinky finger.
Okay.
Because I don't have your whole finger. I don't need your whole finger. I need this pinky finger to know that you right here while I'm going through this. Because if I don't have that pinky finger, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Yeah.
And I can see how people could lose their mind and how people commit suicide after a loved one leave. And I can really see it.
Yeah.
But we have a foundation that's way greater than most of the world don't have.
And it's
You
that
know what I
part.
mean?
It's
So-
that part. It's truly like it's the hope we have.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like I honestly do not know how people live without knowing God.
Yes.
Because it is the knowledge that I have of him. It's the hope that I have in him, that in those moments I am able to still stand.
Yes.
Like the psalm that is like one of my favorites is Psalm 40, because in those moments where I may feel distant from him, I may feel alone, there's still the knowledge of, even though I feel distant, he's never left me. He's right there. And so even though, that's why his word tells us that he'll never leave us nor forsake us, because he's all, no, I can't go anywhere. The Psalms 139, it tells us how we could go as far as the east is from the west, and there's no place we can hide from him, even if we put ourselves in a dark room, because he is light. Darkness cannot hide from him. And so it's the knowledge that I have in that in those moments, even though I feel I am in despair, even though I feel thus lost and alone, it's his word that sticks with me.
Yeah.
That it's like, okay, God, I know you're here. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I'm in pain. I'm going through all the emotions, but I know you're here. And so as long as I know you're here, I'm good. And I know that I can spaz out. I know that I can have a temper tantrum. I know that I can just wild out and you got me. But for those who don't know God and they let themselves go, it's just like there's all hope is gone. It's lost for them. And so that's why it's just so important to know him.
Yeah. And then we have to be the salt and light. We have to be the salt and light in the world.
And I want to say, like, maybe a year, well, I can't remember. Once we found out, like, because my mom had both of her legs were amputated, I spoke to the doctors and I said, based on someone that's in this position, right? What is the life expectancy of someone? Now, when he told me, he said, based on everything with your mom that she has going on, it can be up to a year. So me hearing this information, knowing that, okay, all right, Lord, all right, you heard what he said. Okay, so I need you to give me the grace, give me the discernment to be able to navigate this new space in this new season that I'm in with her, right? So what it taught me during that moment, because I wasn't even going to ask the doctors. I didn't even want to hear what he was going to tell me. And being able to hear that information, now I have this information. What am I going to do with this information? I didn't share it with my dad, so he was not aware, because I knew that he was not in a position to hear that. And so for me, I said, okay, Lord, help me navigate this. And so during this time, I would call, we would talk. My conversation with her would change. She began to tell me when we got off the phone, well, I'm not gonna say bye, it's gonna be see you later. And I feel like she knew. Like she knew.
Yeah.
And so I said, all right, sugar, I'll talk to you later or whatever. Which I did, because we talked about 5 times a day. And during that time, and then it was January, that this was a month before she passed. The Holy Spirit was like, go take the kids and see your mama. I was like, okay, all right, I'm gonna go. This was Martin Luther King weekend. So I told Eric, I said, I need to take the kids to see my mom. Went, took the kids. It was just me and the kids, and went down there. They saw her. She was in the hospital, but they got that opportunity to be able to spend that time with her, to physically touch on her, love on her, hug on her. And then I flew my dad up the end of January, because he just needed a break. Being a caregiver is a lot. And so flew him up, spent some time with him. She got rushed to the hospital. So that literally 2 weeks after I came back, she was gone. And I was thankful from the time that when I spoke to the doctors and they told me less than a year, I said, okay, I'm going to be very intentional about this year. I threw her a birthday party, did everything I could that I knew would make her happy. And I was like, so that's why when you said, Anthony, about there was nothing left unsaid, I said, I literally know when I closed that casket on her, that I had no regrets as her daughter. None whatsoever. And I think for me, I feel so amazing to be able to feel that way. And some people don't. Some people don't have that opportunity. And that's why it's like, I think I made a post maybe a couple of months ago. It's like, get it right. If your relationship is not right with your people, friends, family, get it right. Because to be able to carry grief and walk through grief is already a lot in itself. So to carry the guilt of not being able to say something or not being able to tell a person you love them, that would be hard. Like that. So I'm saying, what, this camera? Get it right. Get it right. That camera, get it right. If you have not, you don't want to deal with the grief aspect and the regret aspect. That's something that you don't want to carry after that person is gone.
And if you didn't get a chance to, right? Go to therapy. Try again. Seek help. Like, it's never too late to heal. Like, just because you didn't get a chance to, I didn't get a chance to, but I still need to heal. So I still need to open up my mouth. I still need to open up my heart to talk to professionals, to talk to friends, to talk to my spouse. So definitely, like, if you have the opportunity today, if something is hard, it's the beginning, we still in the early 2024, depending on when you're watching this, you still have time today to make that right, or to share your feelings and express how you feel about someone. And if it's too late, get help. So there's 2 quick things. I know, y'all, this is such an important topic. It's so, we can go wide and deep. There's 2 things that I want to share with our audience, because I think it's important. We don't know all the answers, right? We only have our lived experience. Even if you go to a therapist or to a pastor or whomever, they're not going to know all the answers because they have not lived in your experience. But because we have lived the experience, I think there is something, you talked about being practical, that we can share. So in a moment, I'm going to ask kind of each couple, what would be something maybe that you would say is a don't, and maybe what is something that you would say is a do for folks if they are going through grief or supporting someone who's going through grief. So think about that as I talk about this. But one thing that was occurring to me as we were all talking, and you said it before, I just like loved her through it. And we talked about love here and there. And I think of things and I connect things across that don't necessarily go together. So bear with me here. But if you've heard of the 5 love languages, if you haven't, it's a book by Gary Chapman. Go check it out. But the 5 love languages are quality time, touch, words of affirmation, acts of service, and gifts. And so there's not necessarily one that you fall into, but there's a little assessment, you might have a primary and secondary. I said all that to say, what was starting to occur to me was, I wonder, this is a curious thought. I wonder if one way that the supporting spouse could support is get an understanding of what your spouse's love language is. Because it might be the support language, right? Because we're just talking about loving people. And I had thought about my experience, and I was like, I didn't even know what to tell my friends. I didn't even tell my family what I needed for support. But do we even know what to tell people, what we need for love? And if I think about my love language, it's acts of service. And I would have loved for people just to automatically come and clean up my house and babysit my infant, because we're already not getting sleep, and now all of this stuff. And I would love for people to come and just do things and cook and do, but I never said that. But as we were talking about just loving people through it, I wonder, this is just more I want to get your thoughts on this, if we really just leaned in and understood what our partner's love language is that also maybe a way that we could support them through grief? What are our thoughts?
Sometimes that love language could shift too.
Oh yeah.
Because
Most definitely.
Your primary could be your secondary in that moment
Of
when
course.
it comes to grieving.
Yeah.
And I seen that in a way, because what I was doing with you, I was trying to take all the load away from her, because she the one was doing everything. So I said, I went into husband mode to how can I take as much load away from her so she could take care of what she need to take care of when she go out of town. So my first thing, act of service. For her, bing, 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 bing. I said, okay, get me get son. I put him down to sleep. Don't worry about him. I bathe him. Don't worry about him. I cook. Well, how did I cook?
Wait.
Let me go back and reference. I don't recall. However.
But you can't make it up today.
But
Look, no, it does shift. I think for us, mine, when we first took the assessment, mine was words of affirmation. I still believe it is, but it shifted to, I think, acts of service, because I felt like, what can you take off of my plate that I can, but I don't really want to tell you what I need to take off my plate. I just want you to keep, because you know everything that's on my plate. I just need you to take, and that's what Eric, like you said, you came in husband/beast mode, okay, what can I do? Okay, don't worry about it, babe. I got the kids this morning. I'll fix it lunch. I'll do this. I'll do that. And and it literally, it gave me a relief, because it's like, oh, okay, I don't have to worry about doing that. All right. But I also didn't want to tell him I needed him to take it off my plate, because I'm like, I got it. Don't worry about it. I can do it. I can do it. But then it's like, but he could see how I was struggling to be able to do. So he ended up definitely stepping in that.
Yeah.
So it does shift.
Yeah.
It definitely shifts.
I would say it's different for us just because, one, me already necessarily being the primary one that did all of those things, right? Because the loss was you, Brittany. The loss was for you, Jackie. But the loss was for Anthony. And so I think for me, Anthony's love language is words of affirmation. But in that particular season, it's not that that's his primary, and then his secondary would be quality time. And so I think in that season, it switched for him where it was more about the quality time. I just want you to sit with me, Hannah. I just want you to be that soundboard. I just want you to listen. But like I said earlier, in the first season of loss that we went through, I didn't know how to do that for him, because we were married for 8 years by that time. So in 8 years, I really didn't necessarily have to be that, because Mama Jenkins was there, and me, we were 8 years in, but this young bride or whatever didn't realize oh, that's a part of it, is just talking with each other, or talking in the sense of oh, we talk every day, we see each other every day, but it was more of a quality conversation, not the quantity. It was
That
the
part.
quality of it.
That
And
part.
so, you know, in the beginning, it was just, I didn't know how to be that because, again, a part of me was trying to figure out, how do I grieve? How do I support him through, like, so I had all the questions myself. How do I do this? There's nobody telling me what to do, so I don't even know how to be there for you. And what I learned in that season also was that the person who's grieving doesn't even know what to tell you, what
That
they
part.
need.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we say to people, how can I help you? What do you need? And the person's like, I don't know. I just really don't know. And so I didn't want to ask him that, but here I was not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So literally it was trial by error for me. And so that's all I could do. So when I hear him say, like, Hannah was a big support, in my mind, I'm like, I was? Oh, Lord, thank you, Jesus, because I didn't know if I was doing it right or not.
and just off of what you're saying, because we've been through that, right? So I just take my experience to see how I can help somebody else. Like
Right.
my neighbor, he lost his mom. So I know one of the biggest things somebody did was just brought me a flower. So I went to the store, found a tulip or
It was
orchid, and just brought it over
Wow.
to him. It's like, hey, this is just want to get this to you. You know, I know there's nothing, you know, there's no words or nothing I could do, but here.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's been 2 years ago, and he still waters it. He keeps it, you know, and it's just little things. I remember someone brought me some balloons, or when y'all came with the basket of fruit, all that kind of stuff. Those core things that you just remember, like,
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
that's
think
good.
it's being okay to just sit in the silence.
Be
You
present.
know, just being present.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times we get caught up in wanting to have the right words to say, like you said, Eric, the solution. I want to have the right words to say. I want to do the right thing. We get so caught up in wanting to do the right thing or try to solve or fix it, and sometimes it's just being okay with the silence.
Yeah.
And just sitting there with the person, because that may be all that they can do in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is good what you're saying, Jackie, as far as knowing your loved ones' love language and friends. I think it's important. I don't necessarily think that we as friends spend time knowing
good.
each other's love language, because in that moment, again, do we really know how to love on our friends? You know, because a lot of times I think that we are in our own little bubble and we see things from our perspective, right? Reality is perception is 100% reality to the person who's viewing, right? And so if I grieve a certain way and you grieve a different way, and I try to show up for you in the way that I grieve, that's not going to work for you. So it's important for me as a friend to understand how you grieve. And that was one of the first lessons in grief that I learned, because my childhood best friend lost her mom. And I did not know how to be there for her, because one, I still have my mother. And two, the way that I grieve is that I go into seclusion. Just leave me alone. I'm okay. I need to process what I'm going through. And so I kind of treated her the same way. I gave her space because I thought that's what she wanted. That's not what she wanted. She wanted me to be there. So when his mom was in the hospital, and when I got the call from him, because what actually happened is that she had a great day the day before. They, you know, as a matter of fact, Anthony had left to go to the hospital just to go check on her. And because we had been at the hospital since the time we got down to Fort Lauderdale, we had not slept. So he was like, Hannah, you stay here, you sleep. And then all of a sudden it was like, maybe 3 hours later, he calls me telling me that she had passed. And I'm like, oh my gosh, trying to figure out how to get to the hospital. One of the first calls I made on my way to the hospital was to my childhood friend. And I asked her, because her mother also passed due to complications of sickle cell. And I called and I asked her, I said, how do I show up for him right now? Because I remembered that I didn't know how to do it with her. So I called her to ask her, how do I show up for him? And so that was one of the things that really helped me through it, is to just be there. Hannah, right now, there's nothing that you can do. Just be there. And so it's really taking the time to understand each other's, not just our spouses, but our friends, those who we love, understanding their love language, so that we know in that moment we can at least go to that first. And if it has shifted, then we can be sensitive to figure that shift out, but at least show up with what you know, right? Because the Bible tells us to dwell with them according to knowledge. So it's like you can show up with that, but if you don't even know, that makes it even more difficult for you.
Yeah, that's good.
Even practice the language of emotions, because sometimes we gotta discern what our spouse is feeling. They might not verbally say it, but you could tell, oh, she a little spicy today.
Yeah, like you're talking from experience.
You're a little spicy, so don't take it to heart when they go through their emotions and they snap or catch an attitude, or because they still grieving, they still trying to process, they still got all this overload stuff going in. Like they trying to figure life out. Life be lifing. We say that. Life be lifing, and don't take it to heart.
So what I hear you saying is, and I'm not saying this to just like throw scripture and like it'll be fine, but if we actually practice what the word if we actually practice what the word says, it's there to help us. Be slow to speak, quick to hear, and slow to anger. And we want, and within that, we don't want to take offense.
That's it.
Right? Because we know that other person is trying to figure it out. They're trying to love us in the way that they know how. But remember, don't assume. You can start with, oh, I know he's words of affirmation. Don't you be like, oh my God, it's gonna be okay. He may not need that right now, but you can test it out, right? And don't assume and ask questions. The other thing that I want to bring back, because we were talking about love, 1 Corinthians 13. What is love? According to the word of God. Love is patient. So if you don't know nothing else to do,
Be patient.
be
That's good.
patient.
That's it.
It literally says, comma. Love is patient. So if you don't know what, let's go ahead. Love is also kind. You see how we all say that? Kind. We'll just be kind. But if we're taking offense because, whatever is going on and they're spicy in that moment, it inhibits our ability to be kind. So we got to let down the walls and the fences. So love is kind. It doesn't envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. And when I think about all of that, we talked a lot about, well, I'm supposed to be the strong one. And that's pride.
That's pride.
There's no blame, shame, or attack, bro. Sis. But it's pride. We're going to have to let down our pride so that we can actually receive the love, right? And give the love. It doesn't boast. Now, a lot of people aren't going to be like boasting, well, I still got my person. But if you think about, just how that inhibits our communication, love doesn't boast. So you're not going to be like, well, I still have my mom, I still have my dad. But if
mindful.
you're going to be mindful, you're going to be mindful. It doesn't dishonor others. So the opposite of dishonor is honor. So one thing you could do if you don't know what else to do, how could I honor my friends? How could I honor my spouse in this moment? It is not self-seeking, so serving.
There you go.
How can I serve in this moment? How can I think about them? It is not easily angered, which we talked about, and it keeps no record of wrongs. And so I read this because whether it's love languages, whatever, it's like if you don't know what else to do, what is love? Let's just go back to the definition. And you may not be able to have the capacity to demonstrate all those things at once because you're still trying to figure it out. But maybe you could say, you know what, this week, I'm just going to focus on being patient. This week, or this moment, this minute, I'm going to focus on being kind. So just give yourself permission to process And you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to go through this alone. But that's one practical way within the word that we can go back as well. So I want to leave the audience with this, y'all. We could talk about this for days. I don't know. We might have to ask our producers to split this up. So if you see part 3, just be patient. Love us. Be patient. But I do want to kind of like put a pin, and maybe we'll be able to have a future conversation. We've talked about a lot, and it might be something that you repeat and you've already said, but it's okay. Because if they didn't hear nothing else, if you just see a clip, I would love for them to hear just from each couple, what is one thing that maybe not necessarily a don't, but like maybe not do that. So what's like a don't and a do that you would give to spouses who are either going through grief or supporting their spouse through grief? So we started with y'all first, so we're gonna start over here with the Jenkins because they've been going through this journey a little bit longer. So we'll start with y'all.
I would say, and this is something a don't do, please don't rush your spouse or don't isolate your spouse. You have to let them know that you are there with them, that you're on their team, that you got their back no matter what, because regardless to where you are, whoever that spouse is, that is a part of them that has just been ripped up, torn upside down, floor just caved over. You want to make sure that you are team for your spouse, and just let them know that they're there. Don't push them through it. Don't rush them through it. Protect them from, I heard somebody say this, protect them from your desires, protect them from what you want to do. You know what I mean? Just protect them and just let them know that you have their heart, and I believe because they already feel alone in some ways, because it's like, oh, I'm going through this, but remind them that we're going through this. Like, I'm with you, I got your back. And I believe that's what helped me, because that's what Hannah was for me. Yeah. She didn't push me. She was there. She let me know that we were going through this together. And I felt like, all right, I can walk, and unfortunately I've seen situations where that hasn't always been the case, where someone wasn't that for that. And, it's you walking on shaky ground at that point. But that is one thing I would say to not do, but do.
I have a do. I would say it goes along the lines of what you just read about being patient. To remember patience and to remember grace, and also to remember to check in. I think that's one of the things that helped me with Anthony, was to just check in with how he was feeling. I remember going to him at times and just like, how are you feeling today? What has your day look like? And just having those moments, especially after his father passed, because when Mama Jenkins passed, Papa Jenkins took care of all the arrangements, and he was like the support system for his dad. But when it was his dad, he was the one that had to do all the arrangements, and I was there with him, helping him through it. But I remember coming to him after the homegoing service, after we came back to Orlando, and we were at home. And I went to him and I said, have you grieved? Because I did not see him. Like, he would shed tears. There was times he got quiet, but I did not see him grieve. And so I would just go to him and just ask him, Anthony, have you grieved yet? Have you let it go? And he's like, what do you mean? Yes, I have. I was like, okay. And I didn't push him or rush him, but I just kept checking in. And I remember the moment when it happened, and AJ was in the room, and he kind of just let out this belt. And AJ was like, is Daddy okay? I was like, he's fine. I said, he's okay. And I sent AJ out, and I just held him. And so it's just, remember to be patient, remember to extend grace, and to check in with your spouse.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jenkins.
That was good.
That was good. I would say a do is to be available. I know sometimes it's hard because life be lifing, and just in a moment, like for me, I've had moments where I think it was some straws that fell down that I bought for my mom for my house. Straws fell down, and I just went downstairs and just said, I need a hug.
Yeah.
And I just went downstairs, and he just stopped what he was doing and just embraced me. This past Thanksgiving, I was vacuuming the floor because Thanksgiving, my mom was a cook.
Yeah.
So Thanksgiving was that was her day. And I was vacuuming the floor, and he was at the front of the house, and I just looked at him, and he just came and grabbed me. So just being available emotionally, which sometimes can be tough because he probably was in a place where he didn't really have nothing to give me. But him just being available, like, I appreciate that. So I would say a do is to just be available.
Yeah. For me, I think this is not just a grief hack or best practice. This is just a life best practice for couples and for relationships. And it is not rocket science. You've heard it before. But the do is to communicate, and the don't is to assume. And that's for both sides of the grief. Like, if it is the one that is in loss, or if it's the spouse that is supporting, you have to communicate. One of the things that we went through during the loss was a lack of communication, because we felt like we had prepared ourselves for the loss, because she had been sick for 2 years. We knew it was coming. We've talked about all of these things. We knew exactly what to do and who was going to do what and how it was going to, but we stopped communicating, right? And so we found ourselves not really knowing where the other person was, because we assumed. And so I began to give her what I believed she needed, because of all of the prep work that we thought was going to be enough, right? She assumed that she understood that I could handle all the things that were put on my plate, because we had talked about it ahead of time. And so one of the things I would share with anyone that's going through the grief process is you have to communicate. You have to continue to keep the lines of conversation and dialogue and emotional roller coastering open, so that because when you assume, you get on a ride that you didn't expect to get on. And I found myself sometimes delivering what my intent was to be good and the right thing, but it was also the wrong thing for her in that time. And if we had just communicated and not assumed, she assumed some things about me and the strength that her husband has within him, that I was like, no, I ain't there. I ain't got it. That ain't it. And I think because of that, we found ourselves tripping over things that we didn't have to, right? And so for us, I think just sharing to whoever's listening, like, communicate. That's the do. It's tough conversations. It's things that Hannah said it so crystal clear. I was just like, ooh, I should give her an offering. But here's the thing, like, she didn't know what to say. She didn't know how to articulate, didn't have the vocabulary or the words to say what it was she was feeling, right? Communicate that, like, say that, right? Say it, because I'm going to question it. I'm going to keep going. So I think, again, just communicate and don't assume.
Yeah, that's good. What about you, babe?
Don't think the spouse is strong at all times. Like, I'm always seeing my wife as the strong black woman, right? That's the quote unquote. But don't just assume, I guess that she always gonna have it together at all times. The do. Put yourself in their shoes, and how would you feel in that moment, in every moment, in every minute, hour, day. Sometimes you have to pause. That's what it is. Just pause for a moment and just put yourself in that moment and say, okay, in this moment, how's she feeling? And then when you communicate that stuff, and it should be a covenant of oneness, because sometimes I could feel her even if I'm at work, and sometimes I don't do it. Sometimes I do. I text her to see how she's doing, to make sure she's okay, because she's here and I'm out. So she work from home. But always put yourself in your spouse's shoes and just understand what she's going through or what he's going through in that moment. So,
Yeah, like empathy. Yeah,
empathy.
that's
There
good.
you go.
Yeah.
Vocabulary.
Y'all, we haven't really talked about this, but because it's literally everything that's already been said, so this is just adding on to that. I would say don't fall into resentment and do forgive, because it makes the grief, you're gonna grieve how you grieve. But once you start to get your breath a little bit and you start to recognize, oh, I'm acting different towards these people, or I'm acting different toward my spouse, or if you notice any seeds of resentment, so just make sure that you don't stay in that place and that you don't let that seed grow. And one of the best ways to kill that weed is forgiveness. And understanding, what do I need to forgive them for? Because of a unspoken expectation that I had that they didn't meet. I didn't tell them what I needed. They didn't meet the expectation, and now I got resentment. I need to forgive them for not meeting my expectations. Forgive yourself. Here's one that you may not like because we don't want to admit it. Forgive God. For anybody who might be like, who may not even want to say like, oh no, I can never be angry at God, or I am angry at God, whatever, wherever you are on that spectrum, don't be afraid to say it out loud to God. He already knows. He already knows if you're angry. Forgive him. God, I forgive you for taking my loved one away. Get it out. You need to release that, because you're not even going to realize that that resentment towards your relationship with Father has been disrupted. And you start to realize, why do I feel so far away from him? Why do I feel like I can't hear him anymore? Why do I feel so distant? Even though he told me he's with me, his rod and his staff, his grace and his mercy. He'll never leave me or forsake me, right? Not nor height nor depth, all the things. But I don't feel like he's with me. Have you forgiven him? Because you're hurt. We're human. He created the heart to do what it's supposed to do. He created those emotions that you're feeling. But if we continue to put on a facade like we have it all together, or if we pretend like we're so holy, we can never blame God. You'll be surprised at how those seeds of resentment could grow into weeds. And forgiveness is a good place to start. He already knows. So we are going to
Wrap it up now.
wrap it up. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to say a quick prayer. Quick prayer. Because we know that different couples are going through this. Different friendships are going through this. Different relationships are going through this. We talked about the different dynamics of grief and what it looks like. So I don't want to leave this safe space without covering our audience in prayer. Because if you haven't gone through it yet, y'all,
You will.
you're going to go through it. This is life. This is life. So it's important for us to have these safe spaces. So I'm going to ask our resident pastor to close us out in a quick prayer, just to cover whatever relationship who may be going through grief or not really sure how to support someone who's going through grief. And after he prays, we're going to close out. But make sure that you follow, like, and share on all of our platforms, all of our podcast platforms, all of our social media platforms. We have a new episode dropping every week, and we don't want you to miss these nuggets, miss these lessons that we've learned. Again, we don't know all the answers. We only have the experience that we lived, but it's the power of our testimony to help each other and create the safe space for each other where we start to find that healing.
Yes.
Right? And so we're going to close out immediately after this prayer, and we're going to see you next time on Love and Legacy.
Father God, we are so thankful. We thank you for allowing each one of us in these moments of grief and in these moments of despair to have such an amazing Father to turn to. We thank you for each story that was shared and how now that story, that test, has become a testimony that can bless so many others. We thank you that as we continue to walk out our faith and as we continue to live through the grief and the loss that we've experienced, that Father, you get the glory, you get the honor, you get the praise, and that the light that is shined on these conversations, that the teachings and the nuggets that we share, Father God, it would lead someone back to you. And so we thank you right now and understand that all things do work together for the good of those who love you and who are called according to your purpose. And so no matter what the season may look like, no matter what the season may feel like, in the end, you will get all glory, honor, and praise through it. I thank you. We thank you for George and Jackie and the ministry of legacy that they have begun. Understanding that there is a need, not just in the world, but even in the body of Christ for these conversations. We pray over them as they continue to walk out this journey in you, that the fruit of their labor will bring you glory. We thank you for it. In the precious name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.